Hello, everyone. This is Crystal here with your August 12th, 2020 daily tarot reading. In this reading, as you already know, we are going to be picking up on the overall vibe energy of the day. So today, I always forget this deck, but I love it. It's so beautiful. It's not an English word, so I often forget the name of it. But if you're interested in this deck, just leave it in the comments and I'll tell you. But anyway, I'm using the Practical Witches spell deck, of course, and then I also have the Oracle of Shadows and Light, which I don't use often, but I've been called to lately. I really like this deck. I'll put it like this. I was very much pulled to this deck, and this is what it looks like. I was very much pulled to this deck when I first saw it, because I do feel that as spiritual beings having a human experience, yes, I love like the fourth house Cancer, things of like lineage and heritage and culture. But it's so funny how a lot of culture all relates to the same thing. Like I know that, different, like let's say religions all have their different ways of doing things, but they all are so similar. They all have something like a Jesus. They all have, these different characters who somehow have different names but act and seem the same. And so what I found is that it's not to say that heritage and culture is not important, because I feel like deeply it is. But I feel like the higher you ascend when it comes to spirituality, the more you see the totality of everything, the more that you see the positive and how we're all connected, and the more that we separate. And that's how they conquer. They do this separate and conquer, and that's how we constantly get into these race wars, and that's how we constantly stay in these places of anger and hatred, because we're constantly being pulled apart and told that you're worse because you're of this race or religion, or you're better because you're this race and that religion. When I find that even though those things make us unique, and I think that it's great to have a personality, I'm not one of those spiritual people who feel like lose the personality and find the self. No, find the personality, don't get caught up in the ego. That's what I would say. But and I find that sometimes people do that. Sometimes people get they find culture, or they find spiritual heritage, or whatever you want to say, and then they get so consumed in it, they end up being what they resent in other religious and spiritual practices. So what I'm getting at is togetherness is so important, and what I find is that ultimately we're all spiritual beings having human experience, and the more we see how we relate to each other versus how we're so different from one another, I find that life is just a better experience. Okay, and that's just my perspective. You don't have to agree, right? Now, with that being said, back to this deck. I'm saying all this to kind of address this deck. I love this deck. It is a darker deck. And like I tell people, dark is not always bad. Dark is just going to kind of get to the truth of the matter, and of course show you the purity within it. And I don't mind dark energy. I feel like we have to balance it all out. So if you're kind of sensitive to that, and you're very much of a light worker, and you don't want to deal with dark at all, which I find is impossible, because we all have dark and light energy, but some people just don't want to tap more into that. That's okay. Don't get this deck. But I also will say too, what kind of turned me off about this deck is because I do feel like we're all spiritual beings having a human experience. I feel like we should all be represented in some way within a deck. Now, I get annoyed when people are like, oh, I'm not getting that deck because it's all white people and I'm black. Well, a lot of the times you got to think about it. If you're a white person who made that deck, then you're going to put yourself within the deck. Just like if you're a black person who makes a deck, you'll probably have more black people, if not all black people in the deck, because a lot of the times your deck will symbolize you and who you are. Now, some people kind of go a different approach, kind of like the Paulina Tarot, and they have more of an approach of making mystical creatures. And I think that's how some of these people got into making more mystical decks, to where they don't have to get into race and things like that, and they can make it more into an animated style deck so that nobody gets offended. But this is where I was a bit put off by the Oracle of Shadows and Light deck. For one, it has so many beautiful messages that cannot be denied within this deck. That's why I use it. But I don't like how they have every other race represented within this deck, mostly white. which is okay because the people who made it are white, so of course they're going to put themselves within the deck. I don't get offended by that. But I don't like it when they incorporate other cultures maybe Chinese culture, Hispanic or Mexican culture, whatever other cultures, and then they just completely don't even think to put one person of color, black individual within the deck at all. And that's where I was a little put off. Now, I sat with this for a while, and Spirit was basically confirming that it's okay. I don't have to worry about that. But it put me off. I'm not going to lie, because don't represent every other race and don't represent black people. Okay. You have a more oriental style. And I'm so sorry if I'm not using the correct terminology or being politically correct, but you have a more oriental style woman. You have all these other races, but you didn't think to put a black person in the deck. And that is, at first I didn't even recognize it, and then I just started looking at the cards. I'm like, man, these cards are so beautiful. The imagery is amazing. I'm like, dang, not one, even even the voodoo lady. And voodoo a lot of the times is represented or associated with people of color. So I was surprised. I'm like, man, how could you, even in the voodoo card, you didn't put a black person? So that was kind of weird. So if you're sensitive to that, ultimately, I still kept the deck and I love it, and I'm still going to keep it. And hopefully by me putting this message out there to the YouTube world, maybe their next deck, they'll think about it. And kind of consider things like that. I actually think that this creator of this deck, I think she has another oracle deck, and she does incorporate other, I think everybody in it. I don't have that one. And for all I know, hell, maybe it was a reason why she made the Shadows of Light oracle deck only certain races. Okay, who am I to judge? Maybe she had a reason behind it, but I just had to speak my truth about how I felt about that. So sorry for ranting on. And I think ultimately, obviously we're all spiritual beings, so it doesn't probably really matter. But sometimes I'm like, that seems a little intentional, and it offends me. So let's get into it. Now, we have the Magician in reverse today. And the Magician in reverse speaks of things being manipulated. Okay. The Magician is anytime a person is saying one thing and showing you another. It's when we use our magic, our power, our alchemy, our spiritual divine energy for bad instead of good. It's the moment within the spiritual walk when you decide to put a love spell on someone to keep them with you forever, versus maybe doing a love spell to just bring about an open heart chakra or to bring about more love, but not forcing someone out of their free will. And everybody has their own style, to each his own. But what I find is that sometimes that approach of forcing someone to stay with you becomes counterproductive. And so that's kind of like the Magician. That's one way to explain it when it's in reverse. So just watch that, and I love it how this card kind of tied into it. I'm going to read this card to you, and then we have like a solution to it all. And I know sometimes when I pull these spell cards that you might not have a pink candle, or you might not have the actual time to do it that day, but at least if I'm able to kind of put that in your mind for maybe next time when you need to use it, that's a great thing. Or just the imagery of the card and saying it also will help bring about that energy. So let's get into this. Now, this is the Faceless Ghost and the Hunted Girl, and it is associated with ghost people. And so I'm not going to read all of it, but pretty much what this card gets into is how it talks about really what I call energy vampires. People who don't have their own personality, or haven't done their own soul searching, so they copy and or mimic others, or they wear a facade to convince you that their religion or their spiritual practice is the right way of doing things, but they secretly have their own agendas. Now, when it takes form in an energy vampire, these are people who've kind of lost the path. They've lost their soul purpose, so much so that they suck energy and want to attach to others. This can take form in haters at work, people who just are fake friends. This can take form in these different cults, spiritual and religious, that just aren't what they say they really are. But the beautiful, empowering energy of this is that this woman sees them coming. They cannot manipulate her. So there can be a strong emphasis on manipulation today. But spirit, this is why it's so good to be in tune when it comes to spirituality, because you have heads up. You will see it coming. It could be a car salesman. It could be a person at T-Mobile. It can be someone checking out your groceries who has just an attitude with you for no reason. The powerful energy is that you see it coming and that you know it. So no negative, no dark energy that is negative dark energy can attach and or influence you, because you're too hip. You're too spiritually inclined. Your third eye is open. You see the BS before it can even come. And that's the great thing about this energy. And it also tells you to not be that person. Don't be the energy vampire, just copying and doing what you see other people doing without deeply looking into it. So this says the hunted girl speaks. These faceless ones are coming to me, trying to take advantage of what they see as my moment of weakness. But I do not fear them, as I know that they are blank, formless, and simply taking on any energy they can find. I know who I am, and I clearly see that they do not. They are simply spirits who have lost their way and are so fit and so they feed off of others. I may not be my strongest at this time, but I am stronger than they will ever be. They will not feed off me, for I know who they are and what it is that they seek. I do not wish them harm, but neither will I give them my energy. I will also warn you to do the same. All right. And then the divination message with this is, you may seem in need of help to people who actually have an agenda at the moment. People around you are acting like experts and supporting each other in group mind settings and wanting you to join them for your own good, despite your misgivings. They either do not have fully formed identities, or they too easily take on the beliefs and ideas of other powerful individuals. You may be asked to join with others in their beliefs and be alarmed at a mindset and belief system that seems very blank and faceless, devoid of human joy and warmth. It is wise for you to keep your own counsel, remain detached, and wait for the faceless ones to reveal themselves. They will change when even more powerful people come about. Know that until they are them own selves and commit to following that path, they will be blank pages, written upon whatever the hand of others tell them to do. Do not be like this. Make your own mark on the world. There could be an invitation taking place where your work ideas or even your personality are being copied or watched too closely. So pay attention to that, you all. Pay attention to the people who have blank faces, who don't know who they are, who try to convince you certain things or, tell you to do one way or the other. Find your own way. Put your own mark on the world and don't let these people intrude on you. Now, I also pulled a card from the Practical Witches spell deck, and we've already talked about spells and how that works and how it basically is just powerful energy put behind words. So bear with me. It says, float a rose in a clear bowl of water and light a pink candle beside the bowl with your left hand. Gently stir the water in the bowl and say, these waters cleanse my soul and being. Now with a clear mind and heart, I am seeing. I am love. My heart is as big as the sky and earth. From the east to the west, love universal gives life its worth. Blessings to all, so mote it be. Keep the blessings bowl on your kitchen altar for 3 days and 3 nights. So, of course, this is all about harnessing that love vibration, that love energy. Now, the thing about altars, and some people get confused about this too, and you all forgive me, this daily reading is a bit long, but somebody needs to hear this. Altars are places that we put up in our home where we honor God, honor the higher power, whatever your spiritual practice is. Honoring even yourself, maybe your love life. A lot of times people set up altars unconsciously and don't even know it. If you have a table with different pictures of loved ones who passed on, that's an altar. You know, if it's on wood or some type of metal or stand, that's an altar. But you know, sometimes in your kitchen, you might have an area to where, like in my kitchen, I have a little table to where I just have like an oil diffuser and a shell one of my friends gave me, and I just kind of leave that as an area of just peace. You know, sometimes people have little fountains and stuff like that, and you just have intentions of setting love and prosperity or whatever it might be. So I hope this reading helped for someone today. Don't find yourself being manipulated, and of course don't find yourself manipulating others. And I hope that you have a great day. Use your discernment. It's amazing that we have the power of discernment today, and just strength, which I really love. So have a good one, and I'll see you later.